Today on the Audio Hotline, I'm going to be reviewing the Tc-Helicon Go XLR Mic. You can find this microphone online for about $159. Now, this microphone does come with a lot of different ways to brand it, a lot of different colored little bands. I chose orange. Don't know why, I just did. We'll talk more about those here in a minute. One thing I do want to let you know, it's a little bit of a plug for myself and a new podcast I'm doing, but it also relates to this microphone. Recently, I started a new podcast with Bark from Obscure Mics. His channel's called Obscure Mics, this one's Audio Hotline, and the podcast is called Obscure Hotline. I know, we're so creative. The podcast does talk about audio stuff, but it also goes in tangents. It's a little obscure. And fair warning, it can be a little bit more explicit, a little more naughty. But in episode 3 of that podcast, I do use this microphone the whole episode. So if you do want like a long-form podcast example of this microphone, you can go check that out there. I'll link it down below. But to be completely honest, I wasn't extremely excited to try this microphone out. Since it comes with so many different branding little options, I was thinking it was maybe more concerned with how it looked rather than how it sounds. And if you know anything about this channel, I definitely care more about the sound than I do the look of the microphone. When a microphone looks great and sounds great, that's even better. So I was a little concerned that maybe the sound was going to be sacrificed a little bit, and I'll tell you my opinion at the end of this. But first, let's go through some accessories, some features. We'll test this thing out. We'll do a blind comparison. And actually, I'll put what microphones are going to be in that blind comparison up on the screen right now. One additional thing I do want to let you know is I did just do a review of the Donner PO-8. And this microphone was actually included in the blind comparison in the Donner PO-8 review. So if you want to hear this microphone against even more microphones, you can go check that out. Once again, I will link that below. I do also want to let you know that I'm not using the Go XLR with this review. I'm actually using the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2, and with that I have the gain set around 40%. In addition to that, I'm just using a Telefunken XLR cable. It's like a $20 cable, not super expensive or anything. And I'm using a pop filter, but this microphone comes with this pop filter. And speaking of stuff that comes with this microphone, let's talk about the accessories. The Tc-Helicon Go XLR microphone will come with a microphone mount attached. You can, however, take this microphone mount off, but if you do, there is no other really good way to mount this microphone. As I said before, this will come with a pop filter. In the microphone mount, there is a small little hole that you can put the pop filter stick in and then just screw that into place. Now, as mentioned before, this microphone does come with quite a few colored bands. It comes with a total of 10 different bands that are different shades and different colors. That way you can brand your podcast or show or stream whatever way you want. This will also come with some documentation and, of course, the microphone itself, the Go XLR mic. The build quality of the microphone itself and the accessories are a little bit mixed for me. When you initially pick this up, it feels good. It feels really sturdy and everything. But when I actually took the microphone off the microphone mount, I realized that a lot of the weight and like the sturdiness feeling was actually coming from just the microphone mount itself. I would actually bet that the microphone mount weighs more than the microphone itself. With that being said, the mic mount is by far the best built thing. I do absolutely love this microphone mount. The fact that you can kind of swivel this around and put it in whatever position you need it to be in is fantastic. The build of the pop filter is fine, but I have noticed that it can rattle a little bit if you throw a plosive into this thing pretty hard. If you're being responsible with your plosives, you'll be fine though. Now you can feel however you want to about this, like obviously. But when it came to all these colorful bands, I just felt like it was a little silly. Especially since the only band that's actually built well is the original one that comes on this microphone. All of these other ones feel really cheap and this one is actually metal. I understand that to a lot of people the look really matters, so in a way I guess it's cool that they included this, but for me I'm just kind of like, whatever. All the different colored bands are white, yellow, red, pink, purple, green, light blue, blue, orange, silver, or rose gold, depending on if you get the white version of this microphone or the gray version. But now let's go ahead and move on to the specs. The Go XLR mic is a dynamic microphone with a supercardioid polar pattern. It has a frequency response of 50 Hz to 18 kHz, an output impedance of 300 ohms, a sensitivity of 74 decibels, and an XLR connector, which is obvious, it's in its name. If I can find the frequency response graph, I will put it up on the screen. Now let's go ahead and get into some testing. Since this microphone comes with a pop filter, to me that means that the company wants you to use the pop filter. So for a majority of these tests, I will have the pop filter in place, but I will also do a couple tests without it. Now, if you decide to get just intimately sexy close to this microphone with no pop filter on, here's how it sounds. Now, if you want to get really close to this microphone with the pop filter on, here's how it's going to sound. Real quick warning, it's about to get loud. We're going to do a plosive test without the pop filter and then with the pop filter. Plosive test with some pickled peanuts. Pickled peanuts. With the pop filter as close as it will go. Plosive test with some pickled peanuts. Pickled peanuts. Now with the pop filter a little further away. Plosive test with some pickled peanuts. Pickled peanuts. Now if you're going to be typing on a really loud keyboard behind this microphone, here's how some Cherry MX Blues would sound, which are very loud, but here's how the microphone rejects that sound. Here's the sound when I talk directly into the front of the microphone. Now here's when I talk into the side of the microphone. And now this is directly behind the microphone. And now this is a slight angle since this is super cardioid. And now here's the back, and now we're moving to the front of the microphone. There it is. Now let's take this polar pattern test one step further with some white noise. Now, if you're going to put some post-processing on this microphone, here is just how a slight high-pass filter, probably around 70 Hertz, would sound. And then just a compressor and limiter. I'll let you know if I put any other post-processing on this microphone. But once again, if you want to listen to this microphone in a long-form podcast format, it's episode 3 of the Obscure Hotline. Now let's go ahead and get into my favorite microphone test of all time. Let's do a kitty purr test. Here's how this microphone sounds when you're about 3 inches away from it. Now this is about 8 inches away from the microphone. Now we are about a foot away from the microphone. And now we're about 2 feet away from the microphone. Now let's go ahead and go into an untreated room and test this out. Right now I'm in a very reverberant, completely untreated room. I've got the little Tc-Helicon Go XLR mic right here. Right now it's currently going into the Zoom F3, and here's how this microphone rejects room noise. There is in fact an AC unit going right now. But with this being a dynamic microphone, it should do a pretty good job of rejecting this room noise. The echo is substantial in here, so if it isn't noticeable, that's really great. And sometimes I forget to say at the end of the video if I think that the room rejection was in fact good. So I'll put it up on the screen right now. What did I think when I listened back, me, huh? Now, even though this microphone isn't really meant for music, I'm still going to go ahead and do a couple guitar tests. Well, now that we've gotten all the testing out of the way, now let's go ahead and jump into that blind comparison. Right now, you are listening to a real quick palate cleanser microphone. This microphone is the Shure SM7B, which goes for around $400. I don't think it's really fair for it to be in this comparison since it is much more expensive. However, some people like this to be included, so I included it as the palate cleanser. But now that your palate has just been so damn cleansed, let's go ahead and jump into this blind comparison. You are currently listening to the first round of sound samples, and this is microphone number 1. You are currently listening to the first round of sound samples, and this is microphone number 2. You are currently listening to the first round of sound samples, and this is microphone number 3. You are currently listening to the first round of sound samples, and this is microphone number 4. You are currently listening to the first round of sound samples, and this is microphone number 5. You are currently listening to the first round of sound samples, and this is microphone number 6. Once again, you are listening to microphone number 1 in this blind comparison. Once again, you are listening to microphone number 3 in this blind comparison. Once again, you are listening to microphone number 5 in this blind comparison. Once again, you are listening to microphone number 2 in this blind comparison. Once again, you are listening to microphone number 4 in this blind comparison. Once again, you are listening to microphone number 6 in this blind comparison. Here is the last sound sample of microphone number 3, with it going into the Focusrite 2i2, hitting negative 12 decibels. Here is the last sound sample of microphone number 4, with it going into the Focusrite 2i2, hitting negative 12 decibels. Here is the last sound sample of microphone number 1, with it going into the Focusrite 2i2, hitting negative 12 decibels. Here is the last sound sample of microphone number 6, with it going into the Focusrite 2i2, hitting negative 12 decibels. Here is the last sound sample of microphone number 2, with it going into the Focusrite 2i2, hitting negative 12 decibels. Here is the last sound sample of microphone number 5, with it going into the Focusrite 2i2, hitting negative 12 decibels. Are you ready for the results of that blind comparison? Here we go! Microphone number 1 was the RØDE PodMic that comes in around $100. Microphone number 2 was the Donner PO-8. This microphone can kind of have a variance of what price it comes in at, but it's usually anywhere from $60 to $100. Microphone number 3 was the Shure MV7x. This microphone is the most expensive in this comparison, coming in anywhere from $160 to $180 depending on the sale and the day. Microphone number 4 was in fact the Tc-Helicon Go XLR Mic that comes in around $160. Microphone number 5 was the Presonus PD-70. This mic can go anywhere from about $110 to $130. Microphone number 6 was the Audio-Technica AT2040, and it goes for around $100. Now that I've gone through all the tests that I wanted to do for the Tc-Helicon Go XLR mic, now I'm finally ready to give you my opinion of this microphone. Now let me just start out this review section by saying I'm a little torn when it comes to this microphone. But let me bring some clarity to this and explain some things that I like and dislike. Now when it comes to the build quality of this microphone, I will say that it's not built as well as the RØDE PodMic. I would also say it's not built as well as the Shure SM58. But the build isn't necessarily bad. Like I showed earlier in this video, the microphone mount itself actually weighs more than all the other parts of this microphone combined. Which is pretty weird because if you think about the Shure SM58, the microphone clip weighs basically nothing compared to the microphone. Now I don't think that a lot of people are going to be beating the absolute hell out of this microphone or anything. I'm sure that a lot of people are just going to put it on their microphone boom arm and just leave it alone. And the build is plenty good for that. But I will say I like the build of almost all the other microphones in that blind comparison more than I like this build. The look of the microphone, I do think it is actually a cool looking microphone, and I'm sure that a lot of people will appreciate that aspect of it. But something that matters more, the sound of the microphone, I will say that I did like the sound of the Go XLR mic quite a bit more than I liked the RØDE PodMic. I feel like the Go XLR mic was easy to listen to, nothing really jumped out as bad. However, I do wish there was some more like oomph, you know? And actually one test that really showed the bottom end of this microphone well was the kitty purr test. I mean, obviously the kitty purr test did a great job, it always does. It's the most important test. But for real though, if you watch Blue's kitty purr test for other microphones, it has a lot more low end, and this mic just sounded like it couldn't really handle it. It was actually kind of a weird sounding purr test to me. My cat Blue was kind of pissed off that he wasn't in this shot because I do have the blue band on and the blue lights in the back, so... Oh, and a blue shirt on. It's just fitting. He needs to be in it, he said. But it is really nice that this microphone doesn't need nearly as much gain as a lot of microphones like this. I'd say I had this microphone anywhere from like 5 to 7 decibels lower in gain than I do with a lot of competitors. Blue already left. It was a short stay. On his way out, he said something like, "This video is lame as hell," whatever that means. But this microphone wasn't fatiguing. It was easy to listen to. And in the blind comparison, I definitely rated it toward the top. And let me just say, that Donner PO-8 microphone is solid, especially for the $80 it currently goes for. In my review of that microphone, I gave it a solid A. I think even in parentheses, I said maybe even an A+. Very impressive for $80. Sometimes it's even like $60 on sale. Now, one thing that I did touch on earlier is that this pop filter can rattle if you throw a really bad plosive into it. initially my impression of that was actually worse than it really is. I mean, you really have to throw one in to even notice. I mean, it does happen, but the amount of air that you have to push through it in the right perfect center of it, I just don't think it's likely to happen to a lot of people. But other than that, the pop filter does work pretty well. And I did actually notice that the Donner PO-8 windscreen does fit on here. I will try to find some foam windscreens that do fit this if you'd rather use a foam windscreen over the provided pop filter. I know that this one fits, as well as the on-stage foam windscreen that's a little bit longer than the Shure foam windscreens. But the Shure windscreen for like the SM7B and the Rode windscreen for the Procaster Broadcaster, those are too big for this. And as you may have just noticed, this foam windscreen actually does tame the top end a little bit, which some people might like. Now, when it came to the guitars, it wasn't my favorite microphone. It's usable, like if you were going to casually record guitar and also have a podcast, I could see this being an option. But don't get me wrong, there are better microphones out there for instruments. Now, I feel like the place that I'm the most torn when it comes to this microphone is the pricing. Now, in a way, the price does make perfect sense, because I'm sure they were thinking about the RØDE PodMic and the Shure MV7x, with the RØDE PodMic at $100 and the MV7X at $180. So I do understand it from that perspective. But if this microphone sat at $130, I'd feel much better about it. It's not that I think this is a bad microphone, it's just that there are microphones out there like the Donner PO-8 at $80 that sounds really solid. And this is twice the cost of that. You could literally get two Donner PO-8s for this. I just think there are microphones out there for a lesser price that are pretty much just as capable. So I don't think this is a bad deal. I just think if it was priced a little bit more competitively, that I would find it more appealing. But it is a very workable, very usable microphone. So with all that being said, the grade that I give the Tc-Helicon Go XLR Mic is a C+. So let me just put that into perspective really quick. In my grading system, a C means average, and average means the microphone is worth the cost that you pay. You're not getting a great deal, you're not getting a bad deal. So keep that in mind with this grade. So at least if you are thinking about buying this microphone because you like the look of it in the brandable little colorful bands, at least you're still getting a solid sounding microphone. But thank you all for watching this review of the Go XLR mic. I hope it helped you out, helped you decide whether you want to get one of these or not, but most of all, hope you had fun. Stay tuned for a lot more videos and comparisons, and I do want to say a big thank you to you for watching this video. I appreciate it. An even bigger thank you to everyone that subscribes to the Audio Hotline. Oh, you're awesome. And the biggest thank you to all the members of the Audio Hotline. Look at these bootylicious names up on the screen. Woo! If you want to have a hot dumper like the people whose names are up on the screen right now, go ahead and press the join button down below. But thanks again for watching the Audio Hotline. I'll see you audio nerds next time.